Hey everybody, I'm Jenny Harkle-Road. Welcome to Your Inner Knowing today, here with Jenny, Kevin, and Kelly. We're excited to talk to you about muscle testing, what it is, how it works, why it works, and all the things you've been wondering about muscle testing. So I'd like to start out today by just introducing ourselves and talking a little about who we are and how we know each other. So I will start off by saying, and you guys correct me if I get any of this wrong, I believe we met in 2010, I think it was. My son and your daughter went to preschool together, and we became fast friends. Jenny following Kelly around as a yoga instructor and doing everything I could to get her to notice me so she'd be my friend. She was totally awesome, and I just wanted to know her. And we've had all sorts of fun over the last 11 years together. And part of our journey includes this work because in 2013, I broke my back in a hiking accident and tried all methods to get better. And nothing was working for me, including major surgery and all sorts of natural methods. But then Kevin and Kelly got a watch that I went and saw a medical doctor who did muscle testing with me, figured out what the real problem was through muscle testing. And 6 sessions later, I was healed. And I think we were all stumped. Like, how did that just happen? Right? With all the things I had been trying. And then I became obsessed with muscle testing and the subconscious mind and ended up selling my house and my real estate company and studying the mind. And you guys were some of my very sweetest practice clients, right? I was trying to learn this stuff and asked you guys if I could practice with you. So you were letting me try all this stuff on you. And you guys, something caught your attention about it. What was it?
Do you want to speak to that?
Go for it, yeah.
Well, gosh, I remember sitting with you, Jenny, when you started doing the work. And I was amazed that there were answers to be found that were not available to the conscious mind. To me, before I did yoga, I was in marriage and family therapy and I studied psychology. And I was like, what is this? How is this working? This is incredible. How does my mind, this deeper layer of my mind know what's going on, but I can't bring it to conscious awareness. And I just remember sitting with you so shocked, but we were able to access different answers than my conscious mind was. And I remember we did some work together as a couple, guided by you, and our relationship started changing and it was easier to communicate. And we were tapping into some deeper layers that we wouldn't have been able to figure out otherwise. We would have stayed more on the surface. But with your help, we were able to dig deeper and figure out the root cause of things and start creating changes there. And I was just thinking, this is amazing. I watched you heal. I started feeling different. Our relationship changed for the better. And I wanted to learn more. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. What is this? How come I've never heard of this before?
Absolutely. I love that. And so you started studying this type of work, and now this is what you do, right?
Yeah.
This is your work. You started a company, Innermost Sherpa, and you help people with muscle testing, tap into what's really going on, what's underneath the surface, and either overcome their problems or accomplish their goals. Amazing, right? And then Kevin felt left out. What happened, Kevin?
No, not left out at all. Just
Kevin was actually using it way more at home.
I mean, just really, it was like that when you asked the question, the first word that popped into my mind was reanimator. And it felt like with every step I took on this path with muscle testing as the vehicle, and then utilizing different modes and methods of inquiry and tapping into the different areas of subconscious, emotional, and energy within the system, it was just like, it was almost like Mario when he gets the mushroom in Super Mario Bros. Like, and everything got better. My internal state, my what I coined dis-ease. I've had gastrointestinal / allergy / issues my whole life. Those started disappearing rapidly. High blood pressure, tightness in the chest started disappearing. The monkey brain quieted and then disappeared altogether. And so it was really an internal, like a deep internal dive. And the end of the most recent segment of my journey was a massive enlightenment experience where I was doing, So the book Jenny just held up, I wrote in 2.5 weeks in December of 2019 after the experience, which is on November 21st, 2019. And it was basically connecting to source. I mean, it was like the bat phone. And just instead of it being something I picked up, it's something that's within me. And so it's just this indelible connection to my expression of almost a concierge at source level. That's just like it's game on with all of these types of expressions and work now. And the biggest shift for me happened in the experience, and the voice in my head changed. And what I heard was, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you made it. We're gonna have so much fun together." In my voice, in my head, but I was not thinking that. Mm-hmm. And so that was a big, it was just a big expansion journey, really, and it's continued since then, really.
I love that. So you started a company now, Radical Enlightenment, right?
Yeah.
And so you both have your own companies doing this work. You're working together doing this work, and I just think it's amazing how we've all kind of found this process to help ourselves and to help others. And why not live your best life, right? Why struggle when you don't need to? And with this process, we're going to talk today about muscle testing, how you can really tap into this inner knowing. And I've got to share this story. I remember, Kelli, tell me if you remember this story. So when I grew up with muscle testing. My dad was a chiropractor, and he used muscle testing my whole life, but more to diagnose what was going on inside people's bodies, or to figure out like what supplementation they needed. So I never saw it used to figure out what's going on in your subconscious mind emotionally, right? Or at a deeper level, kind of tap into your inner knowing. So when I started working with Dr. Warren Jacobs, and he was muscle testing me, telling me my back pain was emotional pain, and I was like, wait a second, no, I broke my back. I don't think it's emotional pain, but I know for sure my arm, yes, is saying that with the muscle test. It's showing me it's emotional pain. We started uncovering all these things about me. And one of the things we uncovered about me, I decided I wanted to tell Kelli, but I was like really nervous to tell her what we uncovered. And I think we were sitting in Panera, if I remember right. And I'm like, Kelli, there's something I have to tell you. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I can't say it. And she's like, huh? And I'm like, it's something Dr. Warren figured out with me. And she's like, well, what? And I'm like, I can't say it. And she's like, oh my gosh, what is it? And like probably for like 10 or 15 minutes, it felt like 3 hours. I like couldn't say it. And she's like, were you abducted by aliens? I'm like, no, no, I wasn't. And she's like, what is it? And finally I'm like, I have low self-esteem. And she's like, so does everyone. And I'm like, no, but I do. I didn't know I did. And he discovered that. And I'm like, it's such a big deal. And I was like so worked up. And she's like, it's not a big deal.
It was a relief for me, Jenny, because every time we met, you're just like, oh, nothing ever bothers me. It's all good. And I was like, how? Don't you ever have concerns or worry or this or that? And you're like, no, never. And so when you told me, I was like, oh, thank goodness, she's human.
It's true. So I was really, blocked off emotionally, that I wasn't connected to what was really going on. I was so in the mode of having a positive mental attitude that I was just like, no, everything's great.
Yeah.
I was like, sweep it under the surface. Everything's great. Yeah. I was faking it till I made it, but I wasn't making it.
Yeah.
Because that monster was still growing inside of all the things that had been swept under.
Exactly. Yeah. And for me, that monster showed up as chronic physical pain, right? Before the accident, I suffered with that. And then thankfully, once we all figured out this work, now we could know with a muscle test what's going on. So let's talk about muscle testing. Mm-hmm. What is a muscle test? Kevin, do you want to answer that? What is a muscle test?
So a muscle test is basically a system diagnostic that we can use with binary methods of inquiry, asking either yes, no questions, and get a systemic response from our bodies. Because if we boil everything down to its base, everything is energy. And if something is resonating as a positive or as a strong within our system's resonant. Our system is in basically the chain is unbroken of energy within our system. if we internalize or hear something that is discordant with our system, as far as what we understand or what we know at the bodily level, those energetic chains are going to break down, and then the strength in the muscle also breaks down. So it's really, part of it is quantum physics, because it's all energy work. But at the same time, we're using these conscious and almost psychological methods of inquiry, of really utilizing all the tools that we've got within our system, the knowing that's already there, plus I call it like if you're logging into a computer from the terminal, like you're bypassing the software and you're going straight to the mainframe. That's really what my interpretation of muscle testing is.
I love that. Kelli, do you have anything different or anything you want to add?
Yeah, I like to think of it as a neural signal that's sent from the brain into the body. So basically, every sight, smell, touch, taste, and experience is stored within the supercomputer of who you are. And this is a way to tap into that information and get answers. So we ask the brain a question, it scans the supercomputer of us. If it resonates as truth or something that feels life affirming, something that is positive, a yes, we get a strong muscle response because there's a strong neural signal that's going from the brain down the arm. But conversely, if we ask a brain a question and there's a disconnect, like if the person's belief is other than what they're saying, we might call it a false, or if it causes stress to the system, the brain attempts to send that signal down the arm, but because it's a disrupted signal, it's kind of like a short circuit in the system. It causes a weak response, and it's almost like the arm goes down like a wilting flower. So then we're able to get a yes, no, a true, false, and maybe a stress test, and we can start to get answers by asking questions.
I love that. So how many times, to anybody out there listening, do you think like, oh, I don't know, what's the right choice, or what decision I should make, or how I really feel about this? It's like you can tap into that inner knowing with a muscle test and get the easy, obvious answer. It's like the answer's there. And we complicate it by like overthinking it, right?
Right.
Or trying to put all these different layers into it that like the answer's already there. Just like the muscle test allows you to get the answer. So you can do a muscle test in person, a manual muscle test, or you can do a remote muscle test. So let's talk about both of those, and maybe like, do you have a favorite way to do it? Do you prefer to like push on someone's arm and feel it manually? Do you prefer to do it remotely? So let's talk about the difference, and do they work, both of them? I know I just asked like 5 questions all in one.
Well, I really, when I learned the method, I wanted to use it in the work that I do to assist other people. So I really started using it one-on-one with individuals, and that's how I gained the skill. But Kevin was the one that started using it for himself within our house, and he became very proficient at self-muscle testing. So we both gained a different skill set. And then, some of the clients were over Zoom sessions or over the phone. And then when COVID hit, almost all of the sessions went over Zoom. So that skill level was enhanced. And it's just a way to tap into somebody's energy signal through the quantum field. We are all connected on this field. And it's a way to pick up on their signal. And then we act as proxy or as a surrogate to receive information from their subconscious. So when I work with people, it's usually I'm pressing on their arm, or I'm working remotely and I'm tapping into their signal and I'm muscle testing myself on their behalf. It's a way that I put my own subconscious needs aside and I muscle test for them. But Kevin, you can speak to your experience with that.
Yeah, and I have, I guess, a little bit of both sides of it. I think in-person muscle testing is amazing because it introduces an individual to the feeling of a strong or a weak within their system, which can be challenging if we're starting to, if we're taking our steps on this path without context. It can be really beneficial to have an in-person session so that you can, with there being a third party there, or second party, I guess, you can start to feel what a strong and what a weak is. And then it's the interesting thing that I've heard allegorically from Kelli is that a lot of times if it's someone's first time muscle testing and they're trying to be strong, they're trying to engage their muscle, they'll try and muscle through it. And I like that the distinction is, it's not that you're trying to overpower the process, it's that we're actually turning, holding up the mirror and turning into ourselves so we can actually tap into what that feeling is within us. And that was really, for me personally, the vehicle that launched me on the self muscle testing rabbit hole I went down, of just go testing everything. Where I was at this point on my journey was I had come to the understanding of everything we've covered so far, plus the indelible impact that this work did, just based on my own experience. I'd never experienced anything like it. And the speed and efficiency with which it happened, it's funny, it wasn't surprising, but it was very, I appreciated the degree to which it was so quick. And on in retrospect, what I was doing is, and we touched on, I think at the top, was tapping into that inner knowing and exercising my intuition and refining my intuition of that and that inner knowing. And so and that's where I think self muscle testing becomes invaluable, because we can use others and we can look to different methodologies for answers or for help. But the more we empower ourselves to empower ourselves and start to cultivate the strength and the willingness to really hold up that mirror and tap in and be honest with ourselves.
Listen to your own body signals.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I've said this recently, we're born into an inside out world. And that's one of the challenges of this inside out journey, is that it really flips the script on the constructs we're born into and on the power dynamics we're born into. And it really is a way to increase everything within us, the knowing, the understanding, the confidence, the awareness. And then once we have the information, we can start acting upon it. But without the information, how do we ever know what direction to go?
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's really powerful what you said when you first try this out. It's really helpful to experience it in person. I know for me, when I was trying to get over my back pain and Dr. Warren was pressing on my arm for a manual muscle test, and he was saying, he had me say the pain is emotional. And I would say that, and he would try to press on my arm, and it was like an iron rod. I mean, he could not press my arm down. And I'm thinking, well, I don't consciously think this is true, but clearly my system 1,000% agrees that this is emotional. And if I would have been having a Zoom session with him where he was telling me it was testing as emotional, I wouldn't have had that like physical evidence for myself. I still would have gotten the result if I would have stayed open to it. I still would have had the same result, but I can see what you're saying, that, the first few times, or maybe at least the first time, it is pretty cool to feel that within yourself, that there is a physical response when something's true and when something's not true to you. And there is a very easy way to get answers from yourself. And so I love that. So if you're in person, you guys just have someone hold out their arm and press on it for a manual muscle test, right?
Right.
So when somebody's remote, let's talk a little bit more about the remote, because I know I had a guy call me the other day. He's a financial planner, and we were talking, and after it was the end of the conversation, he said, "Can I ask you something? How do you know what I believe? That one time you did that little thing through the airwaves on me. How do you know that?" Like, it's an odd concept. We're not taught to read people's energy or feel our own energy or know our own signals, really. So how do you guys best describe a remote muscle test beyond what you've already said today?
Well, you wrote the book on it.
So it's soaked in unified field theory and quantum physics. So in quantum physics, Niels Bohr is one of the godfathers of quantum physics. And in experiments that he did, he observed that once an atom has been in contact with another atom, it remains connected no matter how far in distance they're separated. And so the visualization that's often used is a photon of light on its way from a star or the sun is in contact with every atom that it passes, and therefore remains within resonance of that atom forever and configuration. And so if we take the layer of the three-dimensional world, our observable universe, and we lift that up, what we see is this underlying ambient layer of energy that courses through absolutely everything. The table that we're sitting in front of, our bodies, our planet, the cars the cars we drive, the air we breathe. Energy is imbued within all of it. And so since everything at its core is energetic, everything is also connected at its core. And so really that is, we're tapping into that underlying ambient quantum 5G, if you will, that connects everything everywhere at all times. And what we do with remote muscle testing is just isolate the 2 points in which we are at and basically establish an energetic Wi-Fi between those 2 points.
It's through intention.
Through intention and through testing. And it's really, it's yes, no. And the power of intent, you hear these cliches once you kind of get into the space, and like, oh, the power of intention. It's like, no, this stuff is actually like everything that exists in our world has either been created from intention, thought, or language. Everything.
Absolutely.
And so that's really it at a paragraph level.
I think you did a great job at paragraph level.
We can go into the master's thesis, but then we're getting to the weeds of science and quantum physics. Right. And if anybody's interested, please reach out. I'd be more than happy to share more information about it. But
in the book that Jenny held up, Kevin has a few chapters about the quantum world of energy. And in the work that I do, a lot of people ask me the same question, Jenny, how does this work? And so I asked Kevin if he would generate a little booklet, and it ended up being about 30 pages about how energy healing works. So if people do have questions, I just have them get the book, and then they're able to see little infographics about how it works. And it's at a level that is easier to understand than some of these quantum physics books that are out there.
I love that.
So yeah, it's a helpful tool.
That's perfect. So today we're going to be offering that to you guys. If you want to learn how to do muscle testing in person, I have a 3-day course coming up this month in March 18th through 20th in my North San Diego County office in Escondido. And Kevin and Kelli have a course coming up for how to muscle test yourself and remote muscle testing. So we'll be providing the links for those if you would like to learn how to muscle test. So that brings us to the question, why would you want to learn how to muscle test? We've touched on it, but let's answer that question again, because if muscle testing isn't something you've heard of, it seems like, well, I'm getting through my life fine, how I am. Why would I want to add this tool? What would you say? What would be the number one reason someone would want to learn to muscle test?
If you have a car and the check engine light goes on, are you just going to stand outside of the car and look at it and try and guess what's happening? Or are you going to take it to a mechanic who has the diagnostic tools to tell you exactly what's going on within minutes?
Or what people do is they'll put a piece of tape over the check engine light because they go, I don't want to look at
electrical tape.
Let's make the symptom go away so that I don't have to see the light. Yeah.
And here's the challenge with the symptoms. And to our experiences, just the three of us. Jenny, your symptoms were excruciating back pain after a physical injury.
Yeah.
Mine were a lifetime. I was, when I was younger, I don't know if I'd say sickly, but I had a lot of ear infections and a lot of strep throats before I was 3 years old. Then I had food allergies. Then I had, then those kind of went away. Then they came back. Then I started getting high blood pressure. Then I started getting other symptoms. So the subconscious is so powerful that from the subconscious's perspective, all it wants to do is keep us safe. But because we are not taught, to your point, an inside-out way of living, we're not taught to tap into our inner knowing and our intuition. We're taught, no, listen to your mother and father, listen to your government agents, listen to your clergy. Don't listen, you don't know anything. You're just a child, teenager, new employee in the company, whatever it is. So there's this perceived hierarchy of knowledge or information outside of ourselves, when in reality, all of the knowing is already within us. Practical things like how to invest or how to do taxes or how to change oil in the car. Yes, those things we need to learn, but we have an innate knowing within us. And so the challenge with the subconscious is that it's going to say, hey, something's going on, and it's going to show us these check engine lights, but it does it in subtle ways. Like maybe you have a depressive thought, or maybe you get a little anxious, or you're experiencing anxiety, or maybe you have the restless leg syndrome or angina or sciatica, or irritable bowel or leaky gut. And the list goes on and on, because energy cannot be destroyed, or created, it can only change form. And that's why our system is going to, if we're not getting the message, quote unquote, that something's going on that's creating a state of dis-ease within our system will continue to show check engine lights in different ways.
Right.
And that's the challenge, because they're subtle and we don't necessarily always understand or know them until they get to an avalanche point where we are massively impacted by it. So it really is learning, one, to recognize a check engine light when it happens. And that's a, I do outline it in the book, and it is a method of inquiry and awareness within the system. But then taking action on that is when the self-muscle testing comes in. And so it's a two-part process. One is the awareness and the knowledge of, yes, something's going on within my system. And then two is the practice of the muscle testing in order to be able to tap in and find exactly what that is so we can address it. And so when the engine light comes on, we're not like, oop, I need new brakes and kind of guessing. We're saying, oh no, this is a specific gasket that needs to be replaced. Oh, I never would have even thought of that. I didn't even know that gasket existed in my engine. It's like, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And aside from that, it's just like, you can ask yourself little questions. It's best for me to do this activity today. It's in my best and highest overall good for optimum health and wellness to do this certain self-care practice.
Right.
It's in my best and highest good to take this certain workshop, to make this certain life move, to take this job, to buy this house over a different house, to connect with individuals related to business, or if you get a weird feeling about a person and you're like, ooh, is it really my best and highest good to continue a relationship with this person? You can use it for anything you think you might call a friend or a family member to ask. I feel stuck. What do you think I should do about this decision?
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, you ask your innermost self,
Right.
how would I best be impacted if I make this decision versus this decision? We can test on a scale from 1 to 10, on a scale from 1 to 100. Which product would be the best? Which book would I enjoy the most? Which movie would I enjoy seeing? Just anything you could possibly think of, little questions to bigger life decisions, and the more specific you can get with your questioning, the better. Because if you're deciding on a job, you might say, oh, this is the best job for me.
Right.
But really, what are you asking? Is it emotional health and well-being? Is it the best salary option? So getting hyper specific, this is the best job for me to take based on my physical health, my emotional health, my financial health, and getting all those answers. So you're asking yourself, yourself already knows. We just second guess with this conscious mind quite a bit. The answers are there. It's just a way to tap in.
Absolutely. And I think just even the question, so many times we're busy. We have all these things to do. And we never even think to ask ourselves, is this in my highest and best good? It's just on the calendar and I need to get this done, right? So it's kind of like, oh, wait a second, take a step back, put on your oxygen mask. Like, what do I need to experience my best life and to find joy and happiness and health and wealth, whatever you want every day? Well, the answers are in you. So you've got to see, what are those answers? And the subconscious is the easiest way to muscle test and see what's true and what's not, what you believe and what you don't. And even beyond the subconscious, like you said, Kevin, we have the answers, right? We have this inner knowing about our purpose and our passion and what's best for us and where we should be headed on this journey. And we can tap into that and see what that is. And when we're in alignment with that, all of a sudden, every day is joyful, right? It doesn't mean life doesn't happen. Life still happens. But when it happens, we're open and curious and understanding and loving and forgiving instead of, however we used to be perceiving it when we weren't functioning out of that same place. That you can when you muscle test and really get to know and understand yourself and get rid of some of that negative programming that we all pick up along the way, right? Whether we like it or not, we're born with it. We literally, from in utero till, we're being programmed. And not that our parents are trying to program us negatively or anyone else. It just happens, right?
Yeah.
And we can change those beliefs and really live our best life. And I think it does. It starts with a muscle test and like being the awareness of what we really believe and what we don't. And if any of those beliefs don't align with what we consciously want, we can change them.
Yeah.
Greatest discovery of the 21st century. We're so blessed. Oh my gosh. How did we learn this stuff?
I've been telling everybody I've been talking to, the next 100 years of energy science is literally going to be evolutionary.
Yeah.
And it's going to shift how we've been for the last 12,000 years of existence.
Yeah.
And it is not going to, it is shifting right now. Like we're in the process.
And because of the science of today, I think a lot of this stuff, it's not new information. We just didn't understand it scientifically, right? We weren't at a place to discover it. I know for me, I've got a neuroscientist doing another study on my process right now. And it's so fun to be able to be like, no, this isn't woo-woo. This isn't voodoo. This is science. Like, this is not philosophy. This is physics.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's been around for the last 150 years, but the dominant information has always been more of the physical sciences, because that, if we're coming from Darwinian evolution and everything that has led up to the physician or the bodily based science and medical practices, since the Civil War,
it's starting to change now.
It's starting to change, and we're actually recognizing and being able to verify with testing and with clinical trials and studies, not only the presence of energy as a body that we experience, but the veracity of it and how really monumentally and foundationally impactful it is.
Yes. I love that.
I just heard just a couple of weeks ago, somebody's dentist did a little energy healing or energy clearing before they began.
Wow.
And also I watched a talk by a surgeon who practices energy work, and people are now requesting her over her colleagues because of that added feature. Yeah. They're thinking, I can get a surgeon who does energy healing on me as well. Right. So she's just fully booked where her colleagues are not. So instead of being so out there, it's starting to come into the mainstream. And I'm so pleased to hear that.
Yes. Yeah. I was in Switzerland a couple of years ago, and I was in this ride share, and I was speaking with this lady, and I was telling her what I do. And she goes, oh yeah, everybody does that here. It's covered by insurance.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, what? Like, no. Let me explain what I do. And I explained it again. She goes, yeah, that's covered by our insurance. And I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Amazing.
Because all of these things have been known since antiquity. They've gone through different permutations, and they've had different names. Right. And the other word that pops into my head for what we're going through right now is reconciliation. Yeah. We're reconciling the disparate aspects of knowledge and information that we have in different places in humanity. And it's really the West is finally catching up to explaining all of this stuff through physics and through quantum entanglement, which, Vedic and other practitioners throughout time, the last 3,000 years, give or take, probably more, they're like, you guys are finally catching up? Oh, that's good. All right, great.
Yes, absolutely. Good. Any closing thoughts on muscle testing? And then we will be posting the links on where you can get with my live training and Kevin and Kelly's online training for muscle testing, so you can benefit from muscle testing in your own life. Any closing thoughts, guys?
What came up for me when you were talking, we've talked about this before, Jenny, is just believing that the power is within you. We saw it as a major pitfall, is that people believe that it's got to be something outside of yourself to create a fix, like a pill you can take or a doctor that you go to, everything Kevin talked about. So it takes first a willingness to open the door of belief, to know that the power is within you. Yeah. To heal yourself, to understand what's going on, to ask questions, and the willingness to say, wow, I am a powerful being. The answers are inside of me, and I can tap into that information and start asking questions. And then your whole world changes. It's like back to the Mario Brothers, it's leveling up the video game and a whole new playing field opens up. Yeah. And then that's when I started experiencing that joy you're talking about. Because everything's not as hard, and I can get the answers that I need, and I know where I need to make the changes that would allow me to feel better and better and better. So now it's just constantly up leveling, and it's been quite magical, this journey, Jenny, and I really have to thank you for opening up the door to us. I'm sorry that it had to be through a broken back, but man, think of how many people that you're able to help, and we're able to tap into this information now and share it. So thanks for being our introduction into it as well, and helping us with our relationship and ourselves
In our
and
lives. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you guys for being open to it, because at first I remember when we were first talking about muscle testing, I think when Kelli and I very first met, she's like, I don't believe in that stuff,
Yeah,
right? Because I was telling her, my dad does muscle testing. She's like, yeah, I've tried it. Nah.
yeah, I had tried it like 10 years prior, and I was like, no,
Yeah.
I don't really believe in it. It doesn't really work. And
Yes.
then watching your experience unfold, and then having some experiences myself that were undeniable.
Yeah.
It was incredible. So it
Yeah.
totally opened my mind.
Yeah. So that's a good point for people watching, right? You have to be open to it.
Yeah.
Right? Open to finding the answers for you, and tapping into that inner knowing that you have, and also the programming you have to see what's in there and what's not, what you want to get rid of, what you want to add to live your best life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
What do you think, Kevin?
that was exactly where I was going to go. Openness and curiosity.
Yeah.
Because when we tap into our inner knowing, it's not our conscious knowing.
Yep.
It's being curious what our body already knows.
Yep.
So those are really the only two requirements. One,
Yeah.
I have to be open to something I might not have been exposed to, or in Kelly's example, maybe I was exposed to it before, but it wasn't the right time, place, or space for me to really dive deeper. And then the curiosity of, I wonder what answer on my system is going to say, instead of trying to override it with overpower it with conscious thought. And then the only other thing I'd say is that it's a practice. There's no such thing as a magic pill, silver bullet, or one and done with anything in life. Nothing is black and white.
Yes.
And so it does take the openness, it does take the curiosity, and then it does take the willingness to be able to practice, if it is something that you're doing for yourself. If it's a self practice.
Yeah.
If it's something where you're practicing with a practitioner, then it just takes the openness and the willingness and the curiosity to go and engage somebody to help, a helper,
right,
to get to that point.
Yes.
But and on one hand, it's a pretty low bar to entry. On the other hand, it can be very, very challenging for a lot of us to take that first step into self-inquiry, that first step into holding up the mirror and really putting down the shield, putting down the sword, taking off the armor that we all of us wear with ourselves and with the rest of our world, and just lay ourselves bare to ourselves and say, hey, listen, what I've been doing for one reason or another hasn't been working in expression XYZ. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's internal and physical, maybe it's mental, spiritual, whatever it is. And then having the wherewithal to take action, do something about it. So whoever's watching or hearing this right now, I'm so glad you're here. This is such a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
And if you are hearing this, there's probably a reason for it.
Yeah. It's your time to take action.
Exactly.
Right? To find your answers and to create your very best life. Thank you guys for being here today. This was super fun. I love being with both of you, as you already know. And I love that we all have this work in common now and can talk about it and learn from each other's experiences with it, and make the world a better place. So thank you guys for what you're doing in the world.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Jenny.
Awesome.
You too. Absolutely.
All right, great being here with you guys. Check the
As
chat,
well.
and we will post our links for our muscle testing training so you can create your best life. I'm Jenny, owner of Balance You. Thanks for being here with us today. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks,
Thanks
Jenny.
everybody. Bye.